Hello, everybody, and welcome to today's BA Insight session. Today, we're talking about the who, the what, the why, the how, and the when of business analysis. And to do that, we've got three excellent guests to join me to talk about all of those things and how it all comes together. And spoiler alert, we might have a little video at the end as well. All right. But before all that excitement, if I can start with some introductions, Karabo, we can start with yourself, please.
Okay, thank you, John, for inviting me. It's such an honor. I'm excited to be sharing my experience from a business analysis point of view. Quick introduction about myself. I've been in the IT industry for about 20 years. I've moved in different BA roles, started as a graduate BA and just moved up until I'm now in a leadership BA role. Worked in different industries, from finance to pharmaceutical, from logistics. Now I'm in central banking. So that is, at a nutshell, my little profile. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Karabo. Okay, and Mark, over to you next.
Thank you for having me, John. Pleasure to be here. And my name is Mark Bruins. I'm a senior certified business analyst. I've got over 40 years experience. Sorry, Karabo, doubled up on the, I'm turning 60 next month. So I started in my early 20s. I've had 25 jobs in the past, 15 of them contracts, 8 of them in the UK. I'm a serial business analyst contractor. In 2019, in April, I launched BA Masterminds. I mentor business analysts how to pivot from perm to contracting and doubling your salary in 90 days. And I really enjoy it, and I'm pleased to be here. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mark. And last but not least, Marcus.
Hi, Marcus Udokang here. I emanate all the way from Calgary, Canada. It's on the far west side of Canada, for those who don't know. I have been doing business analysis probably off and on for about 20 years. And I say off and on because I tried to get away from it for a while, and they just pulled me back in, so to speak. I wanted to be an English teacher, of all things. That's what I went to school for, and I have a degree in English, a bachelor's degree. And somewhere along the line, I don't know, computers came in, and I got my first job at IBM in Toronto, where I worked as a business analyst. And from there, I went on to work for the University of Toronto for quite a long time as a BA, as a business systems analyst. And that's kind of where my background started, is on the technical side of business analysis. And over time, it's gone more toward the business side. I've also taught at Seneca College in Toronto, now Seneca Polytechnic, for about 5 years. And I taught 3 different courses in computer programming. And eventually, I moved on to a financial company that built mortgage software. And from there, I worked for a land banking company after that as a BA. And here in Calgary, I went into event management. And I've also worked for an oil company here in the city as well. Calgary is known for the oil industry. So everything from documentation, from requirements management, from business systems analyst, in the financial industry, education, oil and gas, event management. So it's been a long ride, and I don't know what's next.
Which is always the beauty of business analysis, Mark. It's not knowing what the next project is going to be. And as you've demonstrated, and Mark and Karabo have as well, there's loads of opportunities to work in different areas and different projects, different places all around the world on business analysis. So I feel like, as usual, I've got the 3 perfect guests for this session. Let's start then perhaps with the first question. So obviously the topic is on who, what, why, how, and when. So effectively, this is how we bring together these different things to bring a perspective on business analysis to represent a business. We'll talk a bit more about how those things come together in a short while. But perhaps we'll start with the who, actually, if we can. Karabo, if I can put that question to you first, in terms of, can you share what you affiliate with the who when it comes to business analysis? And
thank you, John. So the who in business analysis is, who are we driving this change for? Who are we implementing this change for? So that is your stakeholders or the stakeholders. You cannot start without doing that stakeholder identification, stakeholder analysis, and mapping those stakeholders, and also making sure that you understand their position of power and their interests as well. So the who will always be the stakeholders. You can take it out to another level and look at who will be doing the business analysis job. But I think the important thing will be who you are implementing this change for.
And I should have asked them the question, but are there any particular techniques or approaches, Karabo, that you apply when considering the who and the stakeholders?
So one of the approaches that I think should be a start is conducting that stakeholder analysis. And some of the models that I have used or frameworks, there's an old framework, I think it's by Michel et al., the stakeholder silencing framework. It really positions the stakeholders in terms of their power, their legitimacy, their agency, and really looking at how do you classify the stakeholders and how do you address their interests depending on their power that they hold, how legitimate they are, and how urgent you might need to respond to their needs. So that framework really is my favorite to start with. Then the whole stakeholder matrix, then where you can start with identifying your stakeholders in terms of their interests, different classifications, what it is that they need or they desire from this change that you're bringing in. And depending on also their level of seniority or what their interests are, then you can address them accordingly and then manage, like drive that whole stakeholder management from that as a guide.
Perfect. And a very good introduction, a great start to the session. So thank you, Karabo. And Marcus, same question to you around the who, please.
I think what's important is before we even start asking this who, the who question, we have to understand some degree of context, right? And usually 9 times out of 10, at least in my case, there's a product that we are building. So the question is, how do we define a product, right? And usually it's something that's tangible. It's something that like an application, maybe it's a part of an application that we're trying to get across to our stakeholders. And then I think once we understand the context, then we have to understand who those stakeholders are. And usually if I'm given a project by a manager, I'll ask, okay, can you recommend who I can speak with? And usually he or she will tell me, these are the people you can have a chance to speak with. And then I'd like to have a JAD session, the joint application session, get everyone in a room all at once and explain to them within an hour or two. Usually I can book a couple of hours in a week just to get an idea of what it is people do, and so that they understand where I'm coming from, and I can understand what it is they do, right? So I think that's the first step in the who for me.
Excellent, thank you. And introduced a new acronym and a new approach that I hadn't heard of before, the joint application session, which I'll look up myself afterwards. So thank you, Marcus. And Mark, to you on that question.
Right, I'm going to come from a really different angle. What I do is I mentor business analysts to elevate their career, and I focus on contractors. Now, in a contract role, you get a job description when you apply for the job. When you secure the contract, you've got 6 months and you're out the door, or a year and you're out the door, they might extend your contract. So you've got a job description. If you break that job description down, let's say there are 30 roles, responsibilities, tasks, duties, whatever, that you need to do before you get out the door. You're not doing all of them for your line manager. Some of them you might do for a lead BA. Some of them you might do for a project manager. Some you might do for a solutions analyst, depends. But I believe in the opposite of the Chinese telephone. So if you have 10 people and the one person says, go to the shop in my orange car and go buy a red banana, when it comes to the last person, when the one talks in the ear to the other, it's totally lost in translation. Now, this is called miscommunication, and this is a huge issue in working environment. And so I always suggest that you discuss with your line manager on one of your first days at work, what are the top priority items that you'd like me to work on first out of the job description, and then work out the 5 W's. And the first, one of the first W's is who. Who am I doing this for? And then you go and introduce yourself to that person and you say, my line manager has just stated that I need to do the business case for the new CRM system for the marketing department. Are you the right person that wants to actually receive this business case? And they say yes. And then you say, do you mind if I deal directly with you and not via my line manager? Because my line manager is busy doing his or her own work. They're also managing me, but they're managing other people too. So you don't want that to become a blocker in your ability to progress and to complete all your work. So it's a very different angle that Marcus and Karabo come from. To me, the who is who are you doing this piece of work for?
Yeah, and I mean, and I think we've covered exactly the right perspectives here. It's not just about who you're working with and who's responsible or who's impacted, but actually who is there going to benefit from that end product as well. And I think I'll add a further dimension. As we often work in organisations where, whether we're contractors or consultants or maybe new to the organisation, and maybe there's already a business analysis practice, or there's other communities or other centres of excellence. And I think it's always worthwhile to be asking, who is in those communities? Where can I go to actually understand the resources, the way that organisation works, the templates available, the help and the community that's available to me as well. So I feel like we've probably covered all bases with that one in terms of the who, but excellent. All right, so maybe then we'll move on to perhaps the what in this case, and if I can ask Marcus first in terms of same sort of thing really, in terms of approaches, techniques, considerations in terms of the what, as it were.
I think we're looking at specific requirements. What are the specific requirements or the features, the functionalities? I know I'm referring to software development here because that's my experience. And there are business analysts in various industries, and their experiences may be a bit different. But in the case of software development, certainly I'm looking for specific requirements, the features, the functionalities that solution must include. And I need to be able to define, I need to be able to document what that solution must do to achieve those desired outcomes. That's the case of the what. And when it comes to tools or techniques, there's a number of them that you can use these days. In Agile, it's obviously some user stories and use cases for your deliverables and artifacts. You're looking at what types of requirements you might want. Maybe there's a business requirement, a functional requirement, a solution requirement of some sort. Obviously, I mentioned the JAD session, which is a workshop type of session to be able to elicit those requirements that you need. And I think I'll leave it there and let the other two add to that discussion.
Brilliant, thank you, Marcus. And Mark, I'll ask the same question to you in terms of the what.
All right, thanks. I also agree with Marcus with the SDLC and all that, but I look at it again from a different point of view, from a business analyst contracted point of view. So you've got this list, let's say 30 items on the job description. You need to do it all. Let's say one of them is develop as is and to be done. Now, that in itself is meaningless, because as a contractor, you need to finish all 30 things and get out the door. If you don't finish them all, you need an extension, and you need to prove why you need an extension, and it's basically bad planning. Proper planning prevents poor performance. So the first thing that you need to do is discuss with your line manager when the time is right, deeming on the priority of this task. You need to discuss with your line manager, what exactly must I do? Because if you break it down, you're going to do as-is diagrams, you're going to do gap analysis, maybe robotic process automation, artificial intelligence, maybe introduce ChatGPT, but what must I produce? So, I've seen it in somebody's CV and it said produced as-is and to be, and when I dive deep, he did 128 as-is diagrams. So it's a big difference if you're just going to do one or if you're required to do 128. Now, who's going to do the gap analysis between the as-is and the 2B? What stage must the 2B be? Must it be signed off, approved, going to testing, pilot, and go BAU? You know, you need to go dive deep into exactly what needs to be done by breaking it up. And another thing is what can be seen as two different things as well. What are my deliverables? So if you're going to do the as-is and 2B, then what are your deliverables? So the as-is would be, for instance, you know, the as-is diagram of the current CRM processing by the marketing department in Microsoft Visio. That is more the what. What are my deliverables? Because if you start producing it in Lucid Chart or something, and then they say we want it in Visio, the reason why you ask what are the deliverables, for instance, if it's a business case or a business requirement specification document, you'd ask for a template. Right, do you have a template that you can submit to me that it's got a table of contacts, you know, an index, so I know exactly what's in scope and out of scope, what's in this document? They don't have a template. You say, have you ever received in this company from another business analyst a completed deliverable, be it an as-is in Visio or a business case or anything? And they say, yes, send that to me. I'll strip it out, turn it into a template, populate it, personalize it, send it back to you for sign-off. Because I've had it in an instance where I've worked 7 weeks on a business requirements document, and my line manager said, where did you get the template? And it was the wrong template, and I had to start all over again. So you learn from your mistakes. But that are the two whats. That's how I look at the what.
Yeah, and it makes me think maybe another what. Sorry, everybody, I put this in ahead of you, but it's basically what lessons learned are there from other projects as well. Wasn't on my list until you said that last part, Mark, so I thought I should add it. Karabo, your perspective on the what, please.
So I'm looking at it differently, and again, looking at it from a change perspective or bringing about the change. So the what would be, what is the problem that we are solving for, or that we're introducing this change for? What is the need from those stakeholders, and what are the opportunities that this change is going to be introducing? And in terms of the approaches or techniques, would be to analyze that problem analysis, feasibility analysis, the impact analysis from your SWOT, your gaps, and most important, the benefits analysis or the value analysis that this problem, or rather this opportunity, is going to bring also. And after we have solved this problem or addressed this need, then what is it that the stakeholders or the business will be benefiting from?
And so many points there that you added to as well. I mean, it made me think as well. Another question that I hadn't really thought about is really, what is the business case as well? You know, there's probably a question to come up with. Another question I typically tend to ask as well around about this point is sort of like, what is it the consumers of my analysis need from me? So as an example, you know, is it the developers? You know, is it the architects? You know, what do they need from me? What have they not had in the past? What works well? You know, what tools do they use? And Mark mentioned tools as well last time. So I feel like they're another layer of important what-related questions, I would say. But once again, it feels like we've taken quite rightly different perspectives, and I think given a very broad answer and a thorough answer. So excellent. Building on that, then, I mean, we've obviously talked about the what, we've talked about the who. Let's perhaps talk about the why, and if we can start with yourself, Mark, on that one first.
Okay, so thank you. So the why. Now, in other words, if they state that you need to develop the as-is diagram, then you're going to say, why? Why am I doing this? I want to see the bigger picture. Well, the bigger picture is we've got a process that needs improvement, and we want to then, you know, improve on that process by introducing a new system, a new software out of the box, some software development. We want to do process improvement. And then you can say to yourself, well, who is doing the 2B diagram? Who is doing the process improvement part of, because it's a business analyst role and responsibility. And that is a way that you can get your contract extended, because if they list certain things in your job description and they say we need somebody for 6 months to do this work, you want to add to this list the whole time so that you can get a contract extension if you've got more work and it's signed off and it's in the it's in the budget for somebody. So I always try and take on more work, or advise BA contractors to rather attain the golden prize, which is get a contract extension at a higher rate than a promotion, either from BA to senior BA or senior BA to lead BA. So you want to be able to take on more work. You wouldn't do this in a permanent environment. You just want as little work as possible. But as a contractor, you want to know the bigger picture. And also then you can bring in your expert advice, and you can say, at my previous role or at another company, we had the same issue, a similar issue, and this is how we resolved it. So instead of doing a cost versus benefit analysis on 5 proposed new products, I suggest that we use this product because it worked well, and I'm familiar with this, and so it's always good to know the bigger picture so that you can give your professional advice if needed.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. Marcus.
Sorry, I had to unmute myself. I think in the case of the why, it's really, we need to be able to understand the underlying reason and objectives for participating in this project. What is the change all about? And I think it's critical that this change drives the purpose, that drives the direction of our analysis. I think it's important that we are aligning the project with business goals. I think it's important that we're ensuring that that the solution addresses this actual problem. And if we ensure that the projects are aligned with business goals, then I think we are delivering real value. So that's my take on the why. Anything else you want me to add to it? I'm trying to get these things out short.
But that said, I mean, you have picked, I guess it's arguably the most fundamental why is, what is the scope? What is the initiative? Why are we trying to do this in the first place before we get into the why of requirements or the why of process? So I think, it's quality, not quantity, I would say.
Yeah, and I know you had mentioned, something about what's the problem statement? What are the goals and objectives? What's the expected benefit of this? What's the value proposition? Has there been a cost-benefit analysis that I can look at or that I'm involved in? But all these things will help us answer that why.
Absolutely. And Karabo, your perspective?
So I really agree with Mark. I would say to. So business goals drives or answers the why. Why does this business needs this? What are the business objectives? Why do we need to do this to align to our business strategy? So the goals, the objectives, and really going back to the stakeholders, having those conversations or those workshops, asking them the why, get into the root cause analysis so that you can get to a point where you are aligning their responses to whether it supports their objectives, their strategy, and their goals. Then the why will now lead you to the how, not to jump. But yeah, the why will then now dictate the next step.
And it's interesting that you talk about the root cause there as well, because the why in that case can become multiple whys if we applied like a 5 whys technique to be able to find the root cause as well. So certainly, totally agree with those points, Karabo, I would say. I think really in terms of, I guess, other things that I might add really, I think macro level on every requirement, I think we need to understand the rationale and the why for those as well, I would suggest. I think even again, sticking to macro level of process and activities, understanding why those activities are done, why it's the certain teams or certain roles that conduct them, why there's technology used or not used for those activities, or why certain outputs are created. So just getting into the habit of asking why at all times will lead a lot to some really good insight. And I think as well, I think probably the last thing is just going back to what Mark was mentioning about whether it's contractors or permanent or consultants, really. I think maybe thinking about why the project plan is structured the way it is, why the objectives are the way they are, why there's a perception, why we've only got 2 BAs when perhaps we might need more, might be a question to be asked, or why do you think a certain skill set is required, as well. So I think, and I think as we've all demonstrated, I think asking why from many different perspectives at every different point in the process will give some really good insight, as I've already said. Brilliant. So let's then move on to the how. And I'm going to start with Karabo first, rightly as I should, as you kindly took us into the how when you were talking about the why. Yeah, your perspective on the how, please, Karabo.
Okay. So now we have understood the why we are doing this. Now the next thing is now how are we solving for this problem, and how are we helping business to achieve this business objectives? So the how is how you are going to be solving this, and not as a business analyst alone, with everyone in the ecosystem or everyone in the SDLC in this case. So getting solution requirements, solution context, solution assessment, solution-based implementation plan. So now you are now starting to answer how will now this problem be addressed? What is needed to address this problem? How are you going to start analyzing this problem? And I look at it as the how centered around the solution to the product development or the solution changing or the changes that is being introduced.
Thank you, Karabo. And Mark.
See, Mark is unmuted there. We're not sure which order
Sorry,
this is going.
Mark B.
Okay. Okay, I'll go. So me again, the how, once you've received this job description and you've got the contract and you're going ahead for 6 months work, let's say, then you take that to your line manager on day one and you say, let's have a look at these tasks in the job description. You know, which one of these don't I have to do anymore? Because this job description could be 2 or 3 months old. They could have employed, you know, put out the job description, given it, marketed it, advertised it, shortlisted candidates, interviewed people, decided on somebody, and that person had a month notice period, so it took a month. So it could be 2 or 3 months old. So there could be some roles and responsibilities that can be removed from this job description before you even start with your contract. And likewise, things could have added on there. So that's the first thing you discuss with your line manager. What in all do I need to do? And then once you've determined what, then you need to prioritize each task. So if your line manager can't prioritize the task, you can't, because you've just joined the organization. So they need to go out and prioritize. But you just want 4 ideally. If they can prioritize just the top 4, you need to get started on those. Then I do the 5 W's. What must I do? Why must I do it? Who am I doing it for? What are my deliverables? And when are they due? So that you can help with the prioritization. Now, once you've determined the 5 W's for each of the top 4 line items, before you start working, you need to plan. You can't just dive in and start working. So that's where I use the how. So this is where your business analysis skills comes in. Now you're going to break down the end result and to exact step by step, what do you need to do to get this result? Now, I use the top-down approach and the bottom-up approach. So sometimes you say, well, I'm going to do this, 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 this. I know exactly what to do, but now I don't know what to do. And then at the end, you can say, well, this is the deliverable. So I have the deliverable in time, final. And then before that is all the stakeholders approve the draft and send it all to the stakeholders. So you work the bottom up and the top down until you've got a gap. And then you go on to YouTube or Udemy or your BCS handbook or the Babok or your lead business analyst, and you fill in those gaps and you say, this is how I want to do it. But then before you get started, you need to get sign off on how to do it, because you're brand new in the organization. You're not quite sure how to do it. So you say, okay, well, one of them is have a one-on-one meeting with the CFO and you want to gather requirements. And they say, no, you can't see the CFO. You need to see the finance manager who's been here longer and works with the processes, and they will have time for you. And they, certain things like that, or don't do it like that. We know that's how you do it in the agile way. We use Agile. We haven't converted from waterfall to agile yet. So, ideally, so basically somebody will sign off on the how you're going to do it. Every single step, either your line manager or a lead BA or the person that you're doing the deliverable for. And the nice thing about doing this as a BA contractor, off goes this total accountability off your shoulders onto the person who approves the process, because that's how you can lose your contract or get fired, is if you make a big mistake. And if you make a big mistake, you can just blame somebody else and they say, who told you to do this? well, that person told me to do this. So it's kind of covering yourself, but that's the way that you can get really productive, knowing exactly the exact steps on what, and then you can map it out into your upcoming week. You can say, with these 4, I'm going to do this amount of work on those 4 tasks, and that's how many hours. And then the upcoming week, Monday to Friday, you're very proactive, highly productive, and you just go, go, go. That's how I break up into the how.
Really, a number of key points there, Mark, but one that resonated with me, probably above the others, really, was that point of understanding how the organisation already approaches change as well, because it's very rare that we go into an organisation and a project and we're doing business analysis for the first time. It's normally been done before, so why not leverage rather than recreate constantly? So excellent. And Marcus, same question to you on the how, please.
I think I should start by saying that nothing's perfect in an organization. Usually it's chaos, and we have to navigate through that chaos as best as possible. So I thought I would start with that. When it comes to the how, we're really referring to the process of determining the solution design, the implementation approach. Again, it's for software development in my case. And we're trying to translate the what. We're trying to translate those requirements into actionable steps. Mark talked about prioritizing. That's what actionable steps are all about. And we also need to understand the methodologies to help create the solution. And we are defining processes and tools. We're defining methodologies, the overall approach to deliver the solution effectively, right? And once we have a plan, once we have a design for implementing that solution, then the key really here is to ensure that the solution is effectively developed. Doesn't always get developed perfectly, because sometimes we're on a crunch for time and we leave out certain things that we shouldn't. We need to be able to meet these requirements. We need to be able to deliver value to the stakeholders as quickly as possible. Now, in my case, I like to use some form of modeling technique, maybe a simple process flow diagram to visualize the sequence of processes and workflows. I think that works really well. Sometimes if I want to do a deeper dive, I'm building up an entity relationship diagram. They refer to those as ERD diagrams, to be able to model the data and relationships within the system. Sometimes you just need a simple software tool like Jira or Visio to build that little process. And I think obviously in the agile environment, you're having constant stand-up meetings daily or every couple of days to make sure that you're on track. It's all about collaboration and communication. So I think that's the how, really, at the end of the day. In the case of software testing, in the case of software development, you're obviously constantly testing and retesting. When I mentioned chaos, I've worked for a company that only had a production environment. They didn't have a testing environment. So how do you test? Well, you have to test in production, and so the how becomes very difficult. And again, you have to learn to just work around that. So.
And then it makes me think as well, a part of the how should also be, how am I going to collaborate with those that are focused on the solution, such as the developers and the architects, and how can we, as an example, how can we help the technology architects actually appreciate what technology and applications need to be built or brought in? And actually that to me is a natural lead into thinking about the functional architecture, the functional analysis as well, and which naturally then starts to make me think similar to Marcus, actually, how are we going to actually analyze that functionality? Is it going to be an ERD, as you mentioned? Are we going to look at state transition diagrams, because that we were looking at workflow? Are we actually focusing on something that's going to have a very obvious front end or user interface? So we might need to think about prototyping as another example. So plenty of different considerations there from different perspectives. But and maybe the last one as well is actually, how am I going to work with others in the team, and how am I going to report status and interact with my project manager as well? We shouldn't leave them out. So good. So once again, covered a lot in that session, in that part. So now let's talk about the when. And Marcus, sorry to not give you a break on this one, but if I could start with you first on the when, please.
the when, it's all about timing, scheduling. And I mentioned previously, sometimes you're on a short time frame, so you have to dispense with some functionality of this functionalities of this particular product. So planning is important, obviously. Managing that timeline is very important. Understanding what those deliverables are and the milestones and the overall schedule. If we need to be able to set realistic time frames, I find that in the case of software development, often I'm working late hours that I may not necessarily be paid for because the project just, my part has to be done. And it's just, you just bite the bullet when it comes to the when. But I think effectively scheduling tasks, understanding how to manage dependencies, understanding how to communicate timelines to stakeholders, I think is very valuable, and ensuring that project stays on track. Obviously, that's the role of the project manager or scrum master, but as a business analyst, you still play a part in that, and making sure that you meet those deadlines and you're contributing to the overall success of that. I think that's key.
Excellent. Thank you, Mark.
For the way.
Mark, this time.
Wow, I think Mark has covered it all there. Got to take the wind out of all our sails there, Karabo. Okay, what do we add to that? Okay, so when again I see all the tasks as a contractor, they're once-off tasks. There's no point in giving you a recurrable task. So, for instance, second line support on a help desk. Then just now they use Zendesk and they say, we've got to upskill you on this. It's going to take you a month, and then you're going to be slow and make mistakes, and then it's another month. And then 2 months down the line, you're really productive, highly proactive, resolving tickets, closing tickets. Now, in a 6 months contract, after 4 months, you're just going to have to hand that over again. So we don't do recurring tasks. We mostly do once-off tasks. And once-off tasks need to have a deliverable. And all deliverables need to have a due date. So you go straight to the person that you're doing this piece of work for, and you say, when do you want this deliverable by? And then, you've got to understand the bigger picture, according to the project plan or a Gantt chart, that's what their interdependencies, as Marcus referred to as well. And you always try and buy yourself a little bit more time. You always say, like, what happens, can I do it a week later or something like that? If they ask you when, then you just estimate the time, you double it, and you add a fudge factor, and they're going to say, "Oh no, why so long?" But I've got other work to do, and it's the so basically the when is when it is due. Now, if you are unable to deliver your deliverable, let's say a week before the due date, that is the time to let the WHO know that you're going to be late. And I always say to my masterminds, don't blame yourself. Always find somebody else that you can blame. Somebody's on maternity leave, or you've escalated the problem to your line manager and it's out of your hands or something like that. But you need to give them that leeway. You need to let them know it's not going to happen. It's happened too much in the past where on the due date, you're just not found. And you've got to seek alignment and transparency and accountability in such an issue. So to me, the when is the deliverable due.
Thank you, Mark. And Karabo.
So taking it just a level up. So now, after you have done the assessment of why the need, so the next thing to ask is, when do we have to deliver this? How urgent is this a required need? What are you responding to? And when do you need, like, for example, in certain instances, you're responding to legislative needs, legal driven kind of requirements, and you might have to respond and come with a solution quicker. So that is the first one, understanding when this will need to be implemented by. Then the second part, as a BA now, that's where you need to look at as to which deliverables do you need to deliver, and then work out your BA plan now, or your activity plan, as to when are you going to be required to deliver this. And that needs to be aligned to the overall project plan, working together with the project managers. So it needs to be a step from when is this need required by, and in order for you to meet that, what do you need to do by when as a BA? Then you put it in a plan aligned with your project manager. Then it will answer the when, which is the timing, the agency of the requirement.
That's it. And I mean, I feel like you've covered so much there that there's very little extra for me. So I'll take a slightly different direction here and really say that for me, an appropriate when question to be asked is really, when can we think about how the good practice that we've seen demonstrated on our particular project, when is it appropriate to try and surface that across the organisation? Can we feed it into the BA community as an example? So that feels like something we should be thinking about. So certainly I'll mention that at this point as well. I think as well, touching on a point Mark made around, from a contract perspective, same for a consultant perspective, in fairness, there is it's always worthwhile having conversations with stakeholders very early on in terms of determining when is it appropriate to talk about the need to extend the contract. So it's no good finding out 1 week before the end of the project or the end of your contract that actually the when should have been 3 weeks before your contract ended, because procurement can't sort it out. So if it's 5 weeks, 6 weeks, 4 weeks, or 2 days, knowing about that gives everybody the opportunity to plan accordingly. And maybe where you are not being extended, or that your role is coming to an end, when should my handover start might be another question to think about as well. Perfect. So we spoke about all the topics in terms of I won't read them all out again, but the who through to the when. Good now to think about how we bring them together actually as BAs. And Marcus, if I could start with you first on that question. We'll go to Karabo after that, and I know Mark's got a video to share on that topic. So we'll start with you, Marcus, first.
I was going to say, just in reference to the contracts, I've worked with smaller companies or mid-sized companies that they give you enough leeway, the 3 weeks, a month, to tell you that you're going to renew the contract. But bigger companies that run very slowly, I may not know until a week before the end of the contract whether it will be renewed or not. So just I thought I would bring that up. We're trying to integrate the who, what, why, how, and when. Integrating these key components into this cohesive approach. We try to make it as cohesive as possible to ensure this comprehensive understanding, or the shared understanding, I think. So the who, right? Have we identified the stakeholders? Have we engaged with them properly? When it comes to the why, do we understand the problem? Is the problem defined? What are the business objectives? Do we know what the root cause analysis is? In the case of the what, have we elicited those requirements effectively, whether it's a use case or a user story? Have we used the proper process models? Do we have the right information? When it comes to the how, do we have that solution design, that implementation plan? When it comes to the when, are we on the proper timeline? Are we monitoring that progress effectively? And I think that pretty much sums it up. So.
And Karabo?
Yes, so definitely all these questions answers the approach itself of business analysis. That's how I looked at them. If you miss to answer one, then you already have a gap there. So they are so interrelated. You cannot go into a project or try to implement a change or a product without understanding who you're doing it for. What is it? Why are you doing it? And how are you going to do it? And when is it required by? So just missing to answer one, then you don't have a complete picture, or your entire analysis will be flawed.
And it's interesting. I mean, we talk about, formally, as we are in this session, about the who, the what, why, the how, when. What's obvious to me is that it's a technique that we don't always explicitly call out, right? We think about many of these things, and I personally, I think I keep it in my back pocket, as it were, and I make sure I'm asking all these questions, but I know I don't formally follow the structure of have I asked the how, and the when, and what. But for some, I'm sure it will be really useful. So it is worth recognizing for people that you can formally note this down and use that as a guide as BA, but also it's something maybe to refer to as you're going through informally, just to make sure that you've covered all bases as well. Feels like now is a good time to let Mark come in and share. He's got something to share with us. It gives us a view on how all this stuff comes together, in a little more of a formal sense. So Mark, over to you.
Thank you. So before I start, Marcus, I just wanted to point out something. Your contract extension as a business analyst contractor is extremely important. I wouldn't go into reasons for it now. I can go into great detail, but you know, there's proactive and reactive in an employee type of state. So you can either start a job and go after 4 days. You can say to your line manager, "I'm finished with my onboarding. What would you like me to do now?" Right? That just doesn't count for a contractor. You need to hit the ground running. So if you want to start straight away, get all the work done, so you're basically proactive. So you get something called the performance appraisal. So I mentor my masterminds 5 weeks before the end of your contract. You contact your line manager and you arrange a proactive performance appraisal, and you ask, you know, what did I do wrong? What did I do right? And there's not going to be a lot that you did wrong if you're mentored by me. And what did you do right? Heaps of things, good feedback. And then you need a basis to use something where you can share your screen or in person to put your case forward, why you're up for a contract extension, that you've been very productive, but you just have not, you've got a lot of work to do. And we use a template for that. So I use a template for two of my, for my masterminds with BAM productivity. It's the skills matrix and professional development plan, and the roles and responsibilities and 30, 60, 90-day action plan. And I want to actually host. John, can you please allow screen sharing? And then I can share my screen, and then I can take you through a quick 4-minute video. Just not John when I can share my screen.
I think you should be able to do it right now, Marcus.
No, not yet. Still can't share my screen. It's still not. Maybe I need to ask something. No. I think it's something that you do on your side to enable screen sharing. Okay, so just let me know when I can try again. Okay, Marcus unlocked. Okay, wonderful. Marcus is the host. Now you need to make me the host, not Marcus.
No.
Mark. I saw a little pop-up. Okay, so we have the 30, 60, 90-day action plan, the roles and responsibilities, so you can map out. This is basically for permanent member of staff. John, you're the host now. You can make me the host. And this is to get through your your probation period. So many people have a probation period of 3 months, and this is why it's the 30, 60, 90-day action plan. Let me share my screen, double click, start the video. Okay, it's got no audio, so I'll talk you through it. Can somebody say if you can see my screen? Okay, so this is John's profile. So this is Capco, the company that John works for. Let's have a look for a job at his company. So there's a whole bunch of BA jobs. So let's say we've secured one of these jobs and now we've got a start date. So what we need is the job description. So over here, we're going to get the job description before so there's a business analyst role in Kuala Lumpur. And now I'm going to have a look at the detailed job description. I did this today, so this role is still live. And now we're going to see what the roles and responsibilities are. So I'll expand it there, and you can see there's a whole long list of what this person, okay, it's a permanent job, but this is what you're required to do in your role. So now I copy this and I put it into Notepad so that I can lose all the text and the formatting. And you can see now that I've got the original text. There's a bit of an overview, and here's the original text straight from the job description. I've gone and modified this original text because you need to break it out into the what. What do I need to exactly do? So you can see they're preparing, facilitating, documenting client meetings and workshops. Very different. A client meeting is very different to a client workshop. So that's why you can see I've broken down the job description into more details to give me more work to do so that I can get my contract extended. So I can go to my line manager and I can say, well, let's prioritize these tasks. And there's different priority methods. You get high, medium, low, red, orange, green, 1, 2, 3. I don't use any of those priority methods. I use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Those are my prioritization methods. So now I will be actually copying and pasting this into Excel. So this is the template that we use. So I'm first going to show you the blank template before I populate it. So it's the name of the document, is your R&R. That's my name and surname. And then let's just say John is going to be my line manager. He's my line manager for this role. So here is the break it down into the 5 W's, the when, the what, the why, the who, and the what are my deliverables, and the when. And this is where I break the how down. I break it down into individual action steps. that we can actually plan and make a to-do list for the upcoming week. And now we're going to estimate for next week, and we're going to ask our line manager to approve the estimated hours allocated against these tasks. And then estimation is no good. So at the end of the week, we're going to type down the actual hours, and then we'll update the estimated with the actual hours, and then get percentage completed. We've also got what am I going to now? The how. Okay, so this is where I'm going to populate the actual individual steps. And this spreadsheet here, you can use to show your line manager from the 31 tasks, I've still got so many left, and that's why I need a contract extension. So we get the logo of the company, the details, John's details in there, and there's a one-liner about the role to aid our aggressive growth plans in Malaysia. They are broken down straight from the job description, the customized text, the modified text into here, and there are all the priority items which my line manager can then go and do. Now we need to break it down into the how. So we take each of those lines that have been prioritized, only the top 4, and we break it down into the how. So I'm going to pause the screen here. I know we're almost running out of time. Let's see if I can pause it. No, not yet. There. Okay. So on this side here, the individual action steps, that's what I talked about. The top-down approach, the bottom-up approach, and then fill in the blanks. And that's what you plan before you actually start doing any of the work. Proper planning prevents poor performance. Okay, and that's a tool that you can use to allocate your time against, and to go to your line manager with this proactive performance appraisal and say, you know, I've done this, here's the graphs of where I am. Okay, thank you.
Mark, I'm very impressed with that. Proper planning prevents, what was it? Proper planning
Poor
prevents?
performance. Proper
Poor
planning
performance, okay.
prevents poor performance. The 5 Ps.
I have to agree with that 100%. And I don't have the same diagram as you, but I have something similar when it comes to change management. And it all comes down to planning.
No, thank you, Mark. Really appreciate you taking us through that as well. And it shows the very formal use of the technique we've been discussing for almost an hour anyway. So with that in mind, and with the hour just about up, and the time just about up, I think the only thing that's left for me to say is thank you all for your insights and your sharing your experience and sharing lots of useful information. And a few techniques I hadn't heard of as well, so I'll take those away. I think, Marcus, one of your acronyms was certainly one that resonated. I think it was the joint application session, the JAS session, so I'll think about those. But otherwise, I'll certainly look out for each of you in the wider global BA community, and I look forward to speaking to you again. But yeah, thanks once more.
Thank you very much, John. Appreciate it.